I think he's maybe trying to get either around and maybe try to even scout the trees. And there you go. There is a yeah, Katana Kachi, and that's a Tosa rifleman indeed. So
Your general is under
what
attack.
what kind of build a Raw put forward here is a very peculiar one. Two pieces of artillery on each flank, and now they're sort of sitting on the hill here. But it's simply not going to work in my opinion, just because the Aggony have that very good formula of a very mobile flank, another mobile flank, and then a very, very powerful center. And that's really, really hard to beat in this instance. And what I would say the case is right now, again, it's a case of communication and build order, lol. It's a case of communication and the armies that they have brought to the fight. I mean, just the fact that Aggony was able to bring a build like this, to have such a flow between their flanks, has won them the fight. Like, there is no way that Raw could win this fight. And the reason I'm showing you this fight in particular is to hammer that second point in, is that if you can manage to build a 3-part army like this, a flank, a center, and a flank, where you sustain or have a very good, powerful center, and then have dynamic flanks that can flank, that have cavalry, that are mobile, and maybe some skirmish force, you're pretty much going to win if your opponent blunders and makes a mistake like this. Artillery units are great. They're great in the center, they're great in the flanks, but you need to complement them. The right flank of Raw didn't. They have an artillery piece and some elite infantry, and now you can see their center is going to start supporting their flank. So they initially, they in essence do not have a center anymore. They just have this hill sort of protecting them. Their flank has collapsed, and now just look at the minimap. Just because of the types of builds and how quickly the flank was able to win here, they're already surrounded behind a hill off the side of the map right next to the red border. And not much action has actually happened. Artillery has been exchanged, and one key engagement has happened here. But, you know, to a normal person who's viewing this, it'd be like, ah, well, they played better. Well, not really. They didn't really play much better. They just brought better builds. And that's a huge thing in Total War. Knowing how to build your army as per the map and as per your teammates. That is the most important thing before the battle even starts. If your opponent has better micro, or can move their troops better, for example, or even has better retainers, all these things factor in later. The first thing, the first business of order, is building your army, and you can see that Aggony has done that simply better today. They've done it better in terms of the map. They've got Cav, which Cav loves this map. They've got an artillery piece, which their opponent also has, which is also great on this map. They've got the right flank center composition, which is something that I'm going to be talking about again in the next video. And now what's going to happen is that it's going to end up being a massacre. I mean, just look at the positioning even of the armies now. Prussian Prince, he's not rushing it. He's holding his troops back, waiting for his center to come in, and now they're just waiting for Twitchy to line up here as well. So it's just going to end up, just look at the minimap and look how well they position themselves. They're acting as a unit, which is something that a lot of teams don't do. I mean, Raw and USSR, they have clans, they're playing together as teammates. I'm assuming they have voice chat servers, but they simply probably did not communicate. Or they maybe had an idea and that didn't work. So that's, excuse me, that's in terms of this fight. But you can take away positioning, and again, it just shows you how well the Aggony team are communicating with each other. And again, still, Prussian Prince, he's not pushing forward. He's being very patient. Twitchy is sending some harassment here at the back. And this is actually going to help split apart their last two remaining forces. You can see now that Weedstar is sort of going to be forced to face this incoming threat from the rear. And once that happens, once he splits off, Prussian Prince is going to start moving forward. And again, this is the pinnacle of teamwork. This is exactly where you want to be. They barely have any losses. Like, they just simply outmaneuvered out-communicated, and in terms of their build or their army builds, they just had better armies for the map. And I cannot say how important that is. Building your army and managing your funds in a way to match your team and the map can win you fights, and it has shown this here, and Aggony has shown this here. And if you pair this with sort of the communication level that they have, you will end up winning the fight. And you don't need to be like a super an elite gaming clan that's dedicated to a total war game, for example, like Aggony is, which isn't a bad thing at all. But you can be casual players playing together with your friends and still communicate to this level. It's nothing mystifying. There's nothing mystifying about it. It's actually a very simple process, as you saw here, and Aggony's making it look very easy, which it can be if you just think about the map, think about your teammates, think about the possibilities, and have a basic plan before the battle. And now look at this. Here we go again, with the excellent timing on the cav charge. Look, they're not going to get shots. They're not going to get shots off. The Prussian Prince, again, excellent cav micro. He waits for the shot, he waits for the reload, he watches the unit, and then he charges his cav through his lines and right back. And there, he's just going to shatter that. He's just going to shatter that line. Great micro. Great stuff from Aggony. And we actually have time for one more battle. So, let's take a look at battle number, I have 46. Prince sent me like 20 or so replays that I had to filter through, so it wasn't great. Ignore Village today, they're playing Legend of Z. Legend of Z is playing with Prince Fashoki against the War Clan. Devil Roos, Rusalan, I'm just gonna call him Devil, Roos, and Ben. Okay. Alright, so Ignore Village is a map that has basically a village on this right side over here by the water, and then it has some sort of a little hill and a terrain, sort of like a little, I don't know what to call this. It's like a gorge, and then some open space over here in the middle of the map. But mostly this map has very restrictive terrain, and we're gonna see how the two Aggony players now, when they have a player that may not be communicating with them, how well they're going to play. So into slow motion we go, and before we look at the builds, I want you guys to think about what type of build actually works and how these builds work. Well, in my opinion, this side of the map favors numeric advantage and favors good cav. You need to have some good cav, because cav can sneak around here excellently because of all these houses. If you have like a strong line army that if you sort of want to favor front versus front engagement, this is the bad place for you to be. So we'll see what the blue player has brought. The center though is another question. If you do have a land face-to-face army, this is a great place to do it. You can line your troops up, capture the workshop, maybe even get some troops up on the high ground, and the same I think can be said over here on this side. So let's start with a Legend of Z. This is a player that's not actually on the Aggony team. He could be, I don't know, but he doesn't have the tags. So he's brought an artillery piece, and unlike the last battle, you can see he's brought numbers and some cav to support. This is great. Great army composition from this player. He's got an infantry to marine, some white bears, non-veterans, good stuff, great to see. But he also has Yariki. But what is he doing? He is going up. I don't know why he'd go up. We still haven't seen anything yet, and you don't want to rush your decisions at all. There's nothing wrong in waiting out to just see what your opponents have. And let's pause, because I don't want to miss this. Over here, this player, who is Devil has better cav than Legend of Z, and he also has better infantry, I think. Indeed, he has better infantry and better cav, and he also has a Shogutai, and the reason he could afford this is because he does not have an artillery piece. So if I were Legend of Z right now, I definitely wouldn't be pushing into that side. Let's look at the centers. The center here, by war is led by this Rusalanama guy. I don't know what his name is. I'm just going to call him Rus. He's got what I would like to describe as a numerically powerful center. A lot of numbers. Maybe even he's going to be playing some sort of reserve type of game. And there is a unit, an invisible unit. What the? This is weird. Okay, I guess that was a bug. And then you can see he's got some spears, carbine cav, Yari key, and his bodyguard. So again, a decent center. I don't know what this player's army is yet. We're going to take a look at it in a little bit. But let's start with Aggony troops. Prussian Prince on this side. He has a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of cavalry. And again, cavalry are great. Especially if you can get them around these gaps, and they're very potent late game. And then let's take a look at his actual main force. He has a white bear infantry. Look how good his cav is. Look how good those cav are. They're great cav units, and you can see he's sacrificed the potency of his line infantry to get that cav component. He's brought line infantry and sort of positioned them at little choke points where they won't be able to be shot. They're sort of just going to be firing face to face with another unit, and basically just going to be sort of an attractive, sort of a baiting force for their enemies. And here, this player, who is Bemp, has brought the completely opposite, and this is the wrong build for this type. And this is exactly what I said at the beginning. You don't want a strong, big line, that's going to be able to fight your opponent face to face, because now, even though he does have a numeric advantage, he's only gonna have 1 unit of Vermilion Bird Force shooting at this White Tiger, maybe 2 at best at a time. Because if he does spread them out properly, they're not gonna be able to shoot around these buildings. Now the same thing goes for this spot in the map here as well. There are trees, there are houses, and he's only brought 2 units, or is that 1? 2 units of cav. And they're unupgraded Yariki that are just going to be mauled up by the Prussian Prince's cavalry. So Prussian Prince on the flank already has the advantage before the battle even starts, and this is something that is consistent with him. He knows his map so well, he knows the game so well, and he knows how to build an army that can win given his position. In their center here, Aggony has this player here who is Fashoki, and you can see that Fashoki is positioning his men in the open. He knows that the Prussian Prince is sort of holding this closed area off, and it's going to be very difficult for their opponent's flank to sort of push in on them without taking many severe casualties. And you can see he's sent the rest of his troops up here on the flank with Legend of Z. Legend of Z has already committed his troops into this engagement, and I'm afraid the positioning, the prematurity of this attack is going to cause him to lose, but he may pull something off. And the reason Fushuki is coming up here, I think, is because he wants to support from the top of this little ridge. So let's get right into the action and see what happens. So the center of the war clan is advancing, and just look at the minimap. Red is Aggony, blue is war. Look at Aggony's flank and center. It's more or less sort of aligned, at least connected, as opposed to war's armies. Look at this gap in between them. They're essentially isolated. Oops. And look what this isolation is going to cause. A gap over here that is going to be strictly, very quickly exploited by Fashoki here. And look, he's going to send in his cav, and because the other Aggony player is up here on the hill, he's now got cav in the back lines. Over here on the right flank, 1 unit of this carbine cav was Imperial Guard cav actually was caught off guard. Prussian Prince losing that, not a very good move. And now you can see the flank is sort of starting to come in, and now look, he's going to attack him from the side. And look how much resources he's dedicating to just remove this 1 unit. Now he kills that guard cavalry. And look what Prince is doing in the meantime. Look at Prince's cav and what this cav has been doing. Essentially, Prussian Prince with 1 expensive cavalry unit and 1 mediocre white bear unit distracted the whole army of Bemp and then sent his cav and his supporting units over here to the center, and now the center is completely red. And this is just great.
Cowards! Your allies are running.
He baited his opponent with a single cheap unit and an expensive unit. He made a juicy target, and while his opponent's attention was here, Prussian Prince sends his cavalry in towards the center and secures an easy win, so that Yashoki pretty much has his entire army left. He did lose some men, he did lose some line infantry, but he has a lot of troops left, and now they're going to have a situation where they can fall back into the open, into the high ground, and have the forces of Bemp be positioned very poorly inside this village. On this other side here, Legend of Z has pretty much lost the fight. Yashoki is forced to send his cavalry in, but Legend of Z did do a decent damage, and what he is, I think what he was aiming for is to sort of equalize the flanks, which is something that I'd say he did a decent job of. He sort of attacked, he didn't have the better build, and he lost. But what has this caused is that it caused this flank now to have depleted units and not very much force on this side. And now let's see the next stage of this battle. So what have we seen so far? Well, we've seen some excellent map usage of Prussian Prince, baiting his unit, baiting this flank, surrounding the center, getting rid of the center very quickly, and now reforming. And look where they're reforming. They're reforming in a place where, again, Prussian Prince won't be taking any fire from the left side, but he will be taking fire from the right side. He knows this. He just pulls back. And he's going to reline up in a better position here. Now, any unit that comes around here won't be able to see him. And this unit over here from the right does have line of sight on him. But there is, I think, some light cover. I think this does count as light cover. So he is in a good position. And now you can see they're going to be sort of standing in reserves. And again, he wants to spread his line out as much as he can to try and deal as much damage as possible. Yoshika, I think. Wow, I called him Yoshika. His name is Fashowski. Okay, Fashowski. Fashowski now is sort of lining up in the ridge here to fight with his opponent. So the sort of fight on the flank here, I'd say, is one for any team, depending on how well they fight. And just look how they line up their troops in reserves. Once Prussian Prince's forces collapse, Fashowski is going to step right in. And look what's happening here. Let's see how the Aggony plays. I don't know what Prussian Prince is doing, but you can see now Fashowski using the buildings as cover, lining up in this place, and now look. This unit can't shoot. This unit is blocked by another of its own units. So he's lining up his troops in a way where the enemy forces can't really shoot him all at once. And this might very well end up in being the victory for Aggony here, but you can see that Bemp is actually trying to surround nicely here, but he's going to be running into already stationed lines of muskets. And no line infantry is going to like that. Look at this. Vermilion board force, not sure what it's exactly doing. That did a lot of damage, and in comes a charge from the rear from Prussian Prince. So, throughout these three battles, we saw a recurring theme, and this recurring theme was flow. General army synergy between either the two or the three Aggony players that were playing in these team battles at once. What we saw always happen is that the flanks had a build that always had an army composition that always supported the center. And this is a very important thing. Your center must not fall, and if it does fall, then you have you're in trouble. You really are in trouble, because it's really hard for the flanks to win and then sort of turn around and deal with another center that has won, because usually if the center wins against the opponent's center, it'll move towards another flank and start surrounding. And Aggony never were in that position, and the reason they weren't in that position is that, as I said earlier, their center had a numeric or qualitative advantage. They were able to always have the edge in terms of a center versus center fight, and then they had the mobility in the flanks. And this isn't something that's like hugely ingenious or anything. Every single general in history pretty much has used this, a powerful center and a mobile flank. And you can see when we saw the fights against Raw and the fights against USSR, they didn't seem to have that concept in their minds when they built their armies. They didn't have very much cav, they didn't have very much skirmish forces. Mobility can either be a skirmish contingent or a cav force. It can be something that you can prod your opponent with, something that you can use to sort of draw a reaction from your opponent and force actions that are more favorable to your side. But you can see here, Aggony very well lining their troops up in little chokes, using cover and preventing their opponents from hitting them from multiple sides. And even though they didn't have the numeric advantage on this flank, they used the map, and now they are going to basically walk away with the victory. And in the end, my ending comments are going to be about the communication that we saw here today. We didn't see any sort of chat because unfortunately the replay doesn't show you that. But I am sure that when they were in the same event together, or maybe the same team speak, they were discussing their builds long before the battle started. They were discussing the map, which is something that I hammered in last time, and then the execution itself was just great. Their micro is great, their control of the units is great, and this is something that you sort of have to develop, I think, with practice. The more you play the game, the better your micro will become, but when you have communication down, when you have map knowledge down, and when you have your builds or your army compositions down, it's very hard to lose a team battle. Unless, of course, your opponent is doing the same thing and they're doing it better, but keep these things in mind when you're playing a team battle next time. You communicate with your teammate, talk about the map before you start, and please, please, please make sure that you have a powerful center and mobile flanks, because those mobile flanks are going to be able to bring you win after win, no matter what, because a mobile flank can always assist the center. It can either flank around their flank, and we saw this in 3 different ways in these battles. The first battle, we saw the Prussian Prince holding a center with a lot of mobility, which can work if your flanks are strong enough, and he sort of did a front charge right into the center of their opponent, and they won. The second battle, we saw the Prussian Prince and Twitchy holding great flanks of their own, a lot of cav. They moved the cav around and they sort of clumped their opponent down on the map. And finally here we saw a very powerful center being supported by cav from the flank. So we saw different sort of team maneuvers, different sorts of actions committed here by the Aggony team. And I hope that you guys learned from this, because when I watched these, I certainly was exposed to sort of new little techniques and little mechanics that Aggony puts together that really does bring the level of play up. So very much thank you to the Aggony team, and especially to Prussian Prince for putting together a replay pack. I will be announcing a new video hopefully soon when I'm done with finals about what sort of replay I'm going to want for next week. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little team talk that we had today. If you have any comments or concerns, do let me know below. I will get to the rest of them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.